Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're wading into the weeds, you could say. Literally.
We definitely are. Our focus is on intentional cultivation.
Exactly. We're exploring that, that really fine line between a plant you might be desperately trying to kill.
And when you actually choose, you plan for it, make it a deliberate garden feature.
Yeah, how do you hunt for that insight that turns a nuisance into, well, an asset?
And for this deep dive, we're really zeroing in on one specific plant, the Lilac Tasselflower.
Emilia sonchifolia.
That's the one, Emilia sonchifolia. It's an annual, and we're kind of tracking how a gardener's view of it completely shifts.
Something that just, pops up.
Yeah, from accidental growth to being actively, purposefully cultivated.
And the source material we have seems perfect for this. It's a personal gardening journal entry.
Notes on Gardening, part 697.
Card 697. Okay.
Yeah, and it gives this really stunning look into how a gardener's thinking evolves. It charts the tasselflower's journey, its potential.
Almost like creating a playbook for harnessing resilience.
Exactly. It's less about just knowing the plant, more about deciding what the plant could be.
It sounds like a real masterclass in turning observation into actual application.
It really is. The journal shows the author moving past maybe typical aesthetic biases
Right.
and focusing just purely on performance, on reliability.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where do we start? I guess with the author's history with this plant, Emilia sonchifolia.
Yeah, that's crucial context. The notes mention this isn't some new discovery for them.
Right, it references an ID made many moons ago, way back in part 269.
Exactly, part 269. So that long timeline tells us something important about how they reached the current conclusion in part 697.
What does it tell us? That it's not just a whim.
It tells us the conclusion is really data-driven, based on long observation. When they first ID'd it back then, they were likely just noting a common plant.
Maybe something you see on the roadside.
Probably, maybe noting how quickly it appeared or that it popped up where it wasn't, wanted. But the sheer time between part 269 and part 697, that's hundreds of growth cycles. Seasons of just passive data collection.
So they've been watching its survival rate, its habits.
Its ability to thrive without any help, without interference, yeah.
Okay, that context is crucial. Because by the time we get to this current entry, part 697, the author mentions having this abundance of seedlings. And the key phrase here seems to be unintended cultivation.
Yes, that's the trigger.
This stuff wasn't invited, it just succeeded.
Precisely. The tasselflower's own success in establishing itself accidentally, that's the very trait the gardener is now ready to harness, on purpose.
They have more than enough raw material, basically.
Exactly. Gathered purely because the plant just proliferated on its own, and that prompts the shift to intentionally propagating and cultivating this species.
So they're not fighting it anymore. They're realizing they've got this ready-made, high-performing starter crop.
That's it. They've switched perspective completely.
Okay, so if the goal now is intentional, self-sustaining growth, we need to look at the why. Why is this plant so good at surviving and spreading?
Right. For you listening, if you value quick but solid knowledge, these self-sustaining properties are the real selling point.
What does the source highlight?
Well, it points to three main traits that make this shift from, let's say, weed to feature actually work. First, how it spreads its seeds.
Okay.
They're light, released into airborne wind currents.
So basically zero-effort propagation for the gardener.
That's the ultimate low-maintenance feature, right?
Totally.
Second, we know it's an annual plant. Normally, that means you have to reseed or replant every year.
Which can be a pain, yeah.
But that leads to the third and probably most critical detail from the source. It reseeds itself reliably. Every 90 days, it suggests.
Every 90 days.
That's what the notes indicate. And that's the biological engine driving this whole intentional cultivation idea.
Hold on, though. If it reseeds itself every 90 days, wouldn't that turn a small, dense garden into just a chaotic mess? Wouldn't it overwhelm the area?
That's a fair question. Does it just become invasive locally?
Yeah. Does the gardener talk about needing to thin it out or control it constantly? Because that sounds like the recipe for a contained bed turning into, something you didn't plan for.
It's a sharp point. And the notes seem to imply more of a shift in management style rather than needing intense, constant control.
How so?
The goal isn't that kind of manicured perfection. It's about achieving continuous density.
Oh, okay.
By grouping the initial plants in clusters, the author wants to form that small, dense garden. The 90-day cycle isn't seen as a threat.
But as the mechanism.
Exactly. It ensures continual growth within a designated area and means you don't get that seasonal dieback, leaving bare earth.
So you're using the plant's own competitive nature.
Right. Leveraging the competition between seedlings to kind of naturally maintain the density within that designated spot. It's designed as a self-regulating low-input system.
Okay, so you mark the spot, plant the first bunch, and then basically let the plant manage itself. You rely on its own nature to fill the space without you needing to constantly intervene.
Yeah, that really shifts the labor involved, doesn't it?
Dramatically.
And, if we think about other plants people use for this kind of intentional self-seeding.
Like what?
Well, this resilience often gets compared to species like Terenia, wishbone flower.
Oh, right. Popular annual. People like it because it does reseed easily, right?
Right.
Saves that replanting effort.
Exactly. It gives you those nice, delicate flowers and comes back readily.
So then, what's the edge for the tasselflower, if Terenia is already a known favorite for this sort of thing?
And this is where the source gives that really compelling argument. While Terenia is a good self-seeder, the journal notes the tasselflower is significantly more pest-resistant.
More pest-resistant. Okay, that's big.
It's huge. It's not just about avoiding a few aphids here and there. It means less stress on the plant, potentially zero chemical inputs needed, and even greater labor savings for the gardener.
So it delivers that same function, self-sustaining visual interest, but with a much lower risk profile than the competitor.
It's basically the superior machine for that specific job, according to this gardener's experience.
Okay, that is a really strong practical argument. Easy to start, spreads itself, hard to kill. But now we hit the paradox, right? The aesthetics. Why would you intentionally give prime garden space to a plant that, let's be honest, most people might just overlook or even call plain?
And this is really the philosophical high point of the journal entry. The author is refreshingly direct about this visual contradiction.
How so?
They flat out admit that an individual tasselflower plant may not possess great aesthetic appeal. You see one on its own, it's easily dismissed.
Yeah, it's not designed to be that kind of architectural centerpiece we often look for in gardens.
We're kind of conditioned, aren't we, to seek out that singular perfection, the prize rose, the perfect tulip bloom.
Things that often require intense effort to maintain that flawless look.
Exactly. But the visual payoff for the tasselflower, it only comes through volume, through the group. The aha moment described is realizing that what matters is the collective impact. A dense, thriving cluster of these bushy plants creates a much more visually pleasing impact.
So you trade the perfection of the single bloom for the effect of just sheer, continuous, vibrant density.
That's the idea. You're redefining garden beauty, in a way.
Shifting focus from the labor-intensive, isolated specimen
to the robust, low-effort splendor of the community.
And this is where the tasselflower's weediness actually becomes its strength.
This is precisely the connection the source forces you, the reader, to make. We're taking the very traits we usually label as problems.
Like being invasive?
Yeah, the traits of invasive species, and we're leveraging them for a controlled, beneficial result. The author explicitly links the tasselflower's success as an accidental arrival to the typical profile of plants we call weeds.
Okay, let's really dig into that invasive profile checklist the source apparently provides, because understanding that seems key to flipping how we classify it.
It is.
What are the non-negotiable hallmarks of a successful weed, according to this journal?
The notes are pretty clear on this. The profile includes 1, fast growth. It has to quickly dominate the available space.
Okay, makes sense.
2, effortless self-propagation. It needs to spread itself without needing special conditions or, help from us.
Right, like the wind dispersal we talked about.
Exactly. And 3, minimal to no pest issues. It needs to be highly defended, resilient against local threats like insects or diseases.
And when you lay out that list, you suddenly realize that for a gardener who wants low-maintenance impact, that's not a list of problems.
It's a list of optimized performance features. Yeah. And the author's conclusion nails this connection. They state the tasselflower certainly fits this resilient profile.
Which explains why it showed up everywhere accidentally.
But more importantly, it provides the kind of ironclad reliability the gardener can now depend on for intentional cultivation.
It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
The very traits that make a plant a pest in one context
are the same traits that make it the most reliable, easiest to manage feature in a low input system.
We really should pause and acknowledge the depth of the author's journey here. The fact that these observations started way back in part 269. That suggests years, maybe decades, of potentially fighting this plant.
Only to realize, much later, that they were actually fighting their most dependable asset.
That is a huge conceptual shift for any gardener.
It really is. And the author actually notes something like, I have spent years fighting this proliferation, only now realizing I was fighting my most reliable asset.
Wow, that quote just sums up this whole deep dive, doesn't it?
Perfectly. It highlights that the label weed is almost entirely contextual. It's based on our human desire for control, usually, not just the plant's biological performance.
So when the goal shifts,
When the goal shifts from eradication to guaranteed abundance, the definition just flips completely.
okay, that feels like a good place to start wrapping up our exploration.
Mm.
We've seen how this plant, Emilia sonchifolia,
Mm-hmm.
maybe seemingly ordinary, definitely highly resilient,
Mm-hmm.
can be intentionally harnessed.
Mm-hmm.
It provides continuous low-maintenance garden density, not in spite of its weed-like traits.
But precisely because of them, that resilience isn't a bug, it's the main feature.
Right.
And this really leaves us with maybe a provocative final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you look around your own environment, perhaps even your own garden.
What's that?
Well, if the very traits that ensure a plant's survival, things like fast growth, easy propagation, pest resistance, are exactly what make it easy to cultivate on purpose,
Yeah.
does that classification of weed really hold up? Does it change when our goal shifts away from immediate, maybe labor-intensive eradication towards long-term self-sustaining abundance?
It definitely makes you wonder what other weeds out there in your world might just be reliable assets.
Assets you just haven't figured out how to utilize yet.
Something to think about. Thanks for diving in with us today.